fairly difficult. I've announced my retirement before now, and I was always encouraged to keep going. And this time, I think the people knew when I announced beginning last primary, that would be my last primary. It seemed to have been somewhat of a big buildup because I had more voices to try to keep me going until at my age, more than any other outpouring. And it did influence me. It did give me some pause. I thought about it, but decided this was the time to do it.
Why?
Because of my age, because of my family that's been wanting me to retire a while. And I thought it was time to get a younger person who was qualified, who could go and stay and be effective. And I wanted to be a part of that. I did not want to stay in office too long so that I was no longer effective. The aging process setting in, and I'm very fortunate that I don't think that's necessarily happened mentally. Physically, I'm looking forward to a knee replacement. And so I just thought that I would like to go out at a time when perhaps people still wanted me to be there instead of kicking me out through the votes. Well, actually, when it was first thought about me doing it, I was going to talk about remaining. But the more I thought about it during the week, I felt that the decision I made last year should hold. That there is an appropriate time to step away to assist a young qualified person to carry on. And it was, I was going to write my statement. I couldn't really get it right. So finally, I just decided I would just go with what my emotions told me to do. And then, of course, you're always sorry when you do that because you don't have any, sometimes, coherence, or you'll forget something you intended to say. But I was just so pleased that my family all saw the need to come and be present. And my family means a lot to me. We remain very close, and they've remained kind of hidden from the public, but very close to me.
So I just want to make sure I heard you correctly. So are you saying that when this was first announced, you intended to say you were running again?
Yes, because I had been pressured so hard by so many leaders to please reconsider and just run one more time. And I was in Washington working on trying to get the last votes gathered for that bill. And I
The infrastructure bill? Or Build Back Better?
Build Back Better.
Okay.
That took votes too. I walked into my office and I glanced at the television screen, and everything was focused on Build Back Better. And I had to reflect on why we were so, not so divided, but not actually all standing together with enthusiasm. We were working very hard to convince the last 5 or 6 or 7 people because we knew we had to do it with just Democrats. And it's the narrowest margin of a majority since I've been in Congress, no matter what side you're on. And I decided that it was probably time for a younger person to come along. You began to question the why when you get to a point where our party is not as together as you'd like it to be, like you've experienced. And many of my dear friends, senior members, one after another were just talking about retiring. And so I thought, there really does come a time when, regardless of what you're facing, retirement time comes. And I really, I had spent time grooming and then stayed so long that I lost some of the people along the way that changed their mind. And I thought I owed it to the people to step away when I had probably identified someone that could carry on well. And it was not an easy decision because I have tended to listen to the voters all along the way on things that they desired, things they want me to do, and got a great deal of satisfaction out of working to respond to the people. But in any life, the time does come for you to step aside. And I thought my time had come. Probably that Tuesday before, because even my staff, we're all enthusiastically getting ready and designing cards, calling volunteers and workers for the campaign, and then about 10 o'clock, I think, Tuesday night, I text my chief of staff and my outstanding outreach director here and said, Saturday will be my retirement statement. And it really kind of shocked them too. But I had 2 or 3 days to explain that in my heart and soul, I felt my time had come. Very fractured. But I think we can overcome that, but it might take a while. You know, the very term, my first term getting there, we were in a big majority and had been in a majority for 43 years. And after my first term, we lost that majority by a pretty big margin. And that was really a shock. To walk back to the Capitol after that election, I had never seen anything. It was not quite as shocking as January the 6th, but to walk down the halls and see all of the Democratic faces on the floor, to see that all the staff that had been servicing you all over the building and all kind of service areas had been fired, was really a shocker for somebody just having spent one term. You always have that concern, but I really do believe that what has affected that to give rise to that thinking is how we are not as together as we should be. But on the other hand, when we pass this legislation for the people, I think the people will understand where the heart and soul of the Democrats were with the people, trying to uplift the people. Having gone through this pandemic has not been easy. As a matter of fact, it has been conducive to dysfunction. For example, I cannot even identify all the new Texans that were elected last time. We really don't have a chance to sit and be in conversations. I've been trying to organize the Texans in a bipartisan way to have just a tea together and discuss some things among us, and it's very hard to schedule it because we spend more time on Zoom than we do with each other. Voting in groups, alphabetical groups, voting and leaving the chamber has not been conducive to us getting together, getting to know each other, discussing ideas in party and mixing of parties. And so it's a difficult time. That was one of the reasons why I kind of drug my feet about leaving, because we really do need members who are willing to listen to each other, to get to know each other. And we've not had that much opportunity to do that these past 2 years.
You said just before that you were grooming some people, but because you stayed long, you lost some of them on the way. And I'm wondering now, who might that be? I can think of one person, Senator Royce West, who I spoke with late on Friday, who said you were a mentor to him. Did you have conversations with him? And I know Mayor Johnson has said now that he's not interested in running, but are those the people you had in mind?
Not really, but maybe. I had spoken to both recently. And Eric Johnson, very early on, expressed some interest, but now that he's involved in local government and has a family of 3, he decided he'd like to just stay local. With Senator West, did not give up wanting to serve, but we had some very honest discussions about him going at 70, the difference in the pace. There's nothing that compares to the U.S. Congress. You can have a lot of experience in state as I had, both House and Senate, and some of the processes look the same. But when you compare, for example, in the Texas House, there are 150 members. In the Texas Senate, there are 31. We could all get in one room and discuss an issue at the same time. When you go to Washington, you got 100 senators all walking on water, and you got 435 House members. And they have come from every nick and cranny of this country. And many cannot imagine what your district is like. And in Texas, there are miles and miles that many cover in just a House district. As a matter of fact, there are more people in a state Senate district now than House, because the state constitution speaks of the numbers specifically that should be in the House and Senate. In the U.S., it depends on numbers. When I went, we had 30 seats. We're now going to have 38, which means that other states have lost population as we have gained. It is hard to the only thing that you can really compare is the deliberativeness. Both bodies are deliberative. But when you have people that have come from every nick and cranny of this country, and they all got there by the same process, you gotta have a little bit more openness to listening, understanding, and trying to convince often. As I have frequently said, I think the thing that helped me with accepting people as they are and where they were is my psychiatric background. of giving everybody a fair chance. So everybody had the same chance. They had as much right to think the way they think as you have to think the way you think. And so I really had to keep reminding myself of that. Because we've had some very interesting members just from this state. They go from one end to the other philosophically. But I don't know any of them that I have not been able to have a conversation with and maybe do a project or two with them. Because I try my best not to judge what I think they're on the wrong track for. Because they could easily judge me in the same way. It doesn't mean that it changes my philosophy, but what it does do is help me to look beyond that and talk about what I needed to talk about with them to get things done. So I really don't know. There might be someone who were recently elected, but beyond that, there has not been a person in this state that I couldn't work with on some kind of project or something. This morning, when my colleague out of East Texas decides to run for a statewide office, he's probably one of the personalities that people would stand away from. But we have conversations all the time. As a matter of fact, I'm working on a project that comes through his district, and we talked about it, and he said, sounds good. I said, I'll send you the information. Because I truly do respect those differences. I might not like it, I don't agree with it, but that's the same way they feel about me too. I have. As a matter of fact, to the extent that I'm aware, opening for filing is till December the 13th. I'm very acquainted with several women who've expressed an interest in running. And I can't say that I dislike any of them, but I'm going to use my best judgment to endorse the person that I think can hit the ground running. Someone who has a proven track record of their own, and because this is really not a love nest type of position, as I feel. I feel that I must look at what a person has done, what it appears likely that they can do, and the circumstances. Age has something to do with it. When I went to office, I was older but younger than most people that were there. The trend is moving younger now. And I'm next to the oldest person there. The oldest person there is my neighbor on the hall, Congressman Young from Alaska, and we're good friends. He's a Republican. We've traveled the world together. We've served on the Transportation Committee. And very honestly, looking at track records, looking at how people can work with others, has a lot more to do with this position than it does friendship. You can have a lot of friends, but when it comes to doing this work, it's too serious for someone to say, well, I registered some voters, or I worked in somebody's campaign. That's just not enough to prove real ability.
Are you looking for track record?
Yes. Well, I've looked at judges, and I've looked at state lawmakers. The person I do have in mind at this time is a state lawmaker. I'm looking for someone who is with fresh ideas, with the energy and interest to do their homework, the ability to work across the aisle, and having the time to spend these long, long hours it takes to do homework to get something done. Anybody who thinks you can do it in an 8-hour day, they're on another planet. There are many, many nights that I was reading and preparing for something. I look up and the sun was shining. So it's not an easy job if you want to do a good job. You got to have the freedom to put yourself into the job. Too many responsibilities distract that. And I especially wanted a woman because we have 2 men already in this area. And I feel that if I don't advocate for women, who will?
You're talking about Democrats, 2 men. You're talking
Oh, yes,
about
I'm talking about
Congressman Allred
Democrats.
and Congressman Visa.
Right.
Okay. At this point?
I'll call you the day after Thanksgiving.
I may keep you to that.
Because the announcement, I think, will come tomorrow.
Oh, tomorrow? Is that
The
right?
announcement of the candidate.
Okay. So the announcement will, the
And I don't
candidate
wanna-
will make that. And will you be there with the candidate?
I don't think so.
Okay.
But we talked just this morning, and I feel pretty good about making that decision. I've examined records. And you know, when someone starts to get attacked by opponents on irrelevant, made up, whatever things, then sometimes you realize that you probably have gotten the right person, someone who can stand on their 2 feet and show the record of achievement and show the energy and time to give it to the job. That's about as far as you can expect, because nobody is going to be perfect. But I would ask the people to their extent, trust my judgment. And having been in this job almost 30 years, what I really feel can make a difference and be a part of the deliberative action and achievement. It's not a glamour job. It's not just a title to earn. It is taking on lots of responsibility and being responsible to a large number of people. They might mention it because we've talked. And as a matter of fact, I've talked with quite a few of the potential candidates, male and female. And I didn't make a decision lightly. It's not based upon friendship. It's not based upon longevity of acquaintance. It's based upon achievement and records. Well, I think I'm proudest of being available to local, county, and state officials around the state, but especially as relates to District 30. It's interesting that when I went to Congress as a nurse, I wanted to be on the 2 committees that handle health care, but I didn't get those committees. And so my choice of science and my choice of transportation, I've made it work. There are no committees in Washington that are not important. Every one of them are. Every one of them can be adapted to every district in the country. So the 2 committees that I chose, I started to look around to see just how they could be of help to the district. I had the medical school, major hospitals. Of course, I've had 7 different configurations of District 30. And I heard someone say, well, she won because she drew her own district. That's kind of a joke. But every district that I have had, I've never lost the one I had. And so working across the board, I've looked out for our healthcare facilities here, our research establishments, through my science committee, from education from preschool all the way through graduate school, trying to be sure that there are opportunities. I first learned about the future as it relates to talent when Texas Instruments went from a calculating making company to Dr. Kilby's development of the chip, the semiconductor circuit. And I took care of my first legislation in 1974 in the Texas House because it was very clear to me at that time that you didn't have to be taught like my mother had to teach me 2 and 2 equals 4, 6 times 5 is 30. All you had to do is click it and it gave you the answer. You didn't have to teach time by the long hand and short hand. You looked at your watch and it already had it. You didn't have to necessarily wind it up. The chip kept it ticking. And also related to that was space. So I knew then that women had to be encouraged to get into these fields because that chip impacted the world. And right now, it's still one of the major concerns in the world. And so that intrigued me. The other thing that intrigued me is President Johnson launching the space program. President Kennedy was one of the first chairs of this committee, but it was really President Johnson who was the father of space exploration. And he was right here from Texas, and I knew family members, and I had worked for him as when he ran for office. And so I just felt that I felt at home in this committee. I had no idea what the importance of transportation was when I went there. But I started to study and look at, when I went to Congress, Texas was bragging about having some of the best highways in the country and almost fell to the bottom. And so transportation was intriguing to me. I've had the same seniority on both committees. I'm second in seniority as it relates to leadership on transportation. And I've stayed put. I had interests that went to other committees, but I noticed that people who had been there and were most effective had been on those same committees time after time. It's always something to learn. And so I worked with every governor, every department of transportation, leaders and board members in the state for as long as I've been there. And I've learned a lot. I didn't even know what a 100-year flood was before I went to Washington, but I found it out now. And I must say, too, that taking time to learn and do my homework has been very helpful to me. The North Texas Central Council of Governments has been a great resource for me getting information to back up what I'm asking for. And so it's been a joy to me, not to just advertise it, but a joy to me to look up and see I've got one more thing going here. And then the requests continue to come, and I continue to try to respond to them. It hasn't been just in my district. It's really been all over the state. I'm very delighted when I can say that I've helped to bring drinking water for lots of areas in this state. In this area, Cedar Hill, I think, is one of the proudest ones to reap that benefit. It's really been a great experience for me. I've gotten to know people from all walks of life. Bill Gates was a person that I knew by reading his books, that now I can say is a personal acquaintance. We're in touch often, and many, many, many others of people of great achievement. Michael Dale is another one in the area, but cabinet members who've been in both parties. I've had a personal relationship with every president I've served with one exception. And So it's been a good experience. I didn't try to run for every camera, but I did try to get to know people that could either be of help to me or I could be of help to them. And so I have no regrets. I've actually gotten a great deal of satisfaction out of serving. I have a great more appreciation for the leaders in this city and for their desire to have a good, healthy, thriving city and their desire to put forth the effort to inform me what it will take to get there. And so all of those relationships have added to my ability to achieve things because you got to have the knowledge and understanding first. And so I have no regrets. I'm very pleased.
The State House and State Senate.
And
First-
Congress.
And Congress. First African-American woman as the ranking member and I think chair of the Science, Space, and Technology Committee. So when you hear all that, what goes through your mind?
What goes to my mind are the little black girls that are trying to find their way now. It really didn't start with my total adulthood. I'm a product of Waco, Texas. And when my paternal grandmother got sick and had cancer, I saw her suffer and die. And I decided I wanted to be a physician. But my high school counselor suggested I be a nurse. So I started to look into nursing. There was not an institution in Texas of higher learning that I could attend to take nursing that was nationally accredited. And so my father guided me to look outside the state. One of the nurses in Waco and one of the physicians, I've always had allergies, had gone, the physician had gone to Notre Dame, and the nurse had gone to a branch of this school in Indiana. So I learned of that school, I applied. I had to be driven here to go over to the Baylor Dental School to take an exam to see if I could get in. So as it turned out, I was admitted with scholarship. So I rode a train from 4 p.m. one day to 8 o'clock p.m. the next day, getting to South Bend, Indiana. I changed trains in St. Louis and changed trains and train stations in Chicago to get there, which was the first time I had ridden a train or gone out of the state without my parents. I got there and saw a whole new environment. I got there the day before opening of admission and was so tired. About midnight, my door opened at the dorm, the light popped on, and there was this nun all in white, and I thought I'd seen my first ghost. But I said all of that to say that that's probably where my thrust within myself to achieve and not to give up was developed. Not to let those barriers stop you if you can find a way to get it done. Now, the interesting thing is I had a sister that was 8 years younger, and she decided to be a nurse. Nor could she go to Baylor when she graduated in Waco. She went out to UCLA. But after her second year, Baylor opened. So she came back and she graduated in nursing at Baylor. So things have changed. When I look back over that experience, it doesn't make me angry that I couldn't go to a school in Texas that was nationally accredited. It makes me proud that I found a way to achieve what I wanted to achieve. And it also makes me proud that now things have changed. And so the young girls coming along don't have to look at a tablet and say 1 and 1 equals 2, they can get a computer or anything with a chip that'll tell them. They don't have to talk about the long hand and the short hand on the clock. The semiconductors will keep that with the noise activity in the sky. You work for change. And I try not to be angry about what happened before the change, but be focused on bringing more change and encourage young people to not let obstacles discourage them, but strengthen them to achieve their goals. And I have one son who has 3 sons, and they gave me 5 great-grandchildren. And the first great-granddaughter was a real different atmosphere in our family with all these boys. But now we have 3. And so when I look at those 3 faces and see those bright, shining eyes, I really do feel that I've been a part of making this a better world for them.
Congresswoman Bernice Johnson, thank you so much for your time. We do appreciate it very much.
Well, thank you.
And congratulations on your retirement.
Thank you.